Welcome to the store. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me.
The sky above New York City was a dull shade of brown, the sun a dim outline barely visible through the smog. The streets below were cracked, riddled with potholes, and covered in a thin layer of dust. A few people shuffled through the debris, their faces drawn and gaunt. In the distance, the skeletal remains of once proud skyscrapers pierced the horizon. The planet was dying, and everyone knew it. Evelyn Frost stared out at the ruins from the window of her office, high in what used to be the world's financial district. Now, it was the headquarters of her presidential campaign. She could barely recognize the city anymore. It was like staring at a faded photograph from a time long gone. Her reflection in the glass was just as unrecognizable, lines of stress and worry etched into her face, her once bright eyes dimmed by years of fighting for a dying planet. The weight of the world was quite literally on her shoulders. "Ma'am, we're ready for you." Evelyn turned to see her campaign manager, Julia, standing in the doorway. The young woman's sharp suit was one of the few reminders of the old world, a time when appearances mattered, when politicians were groomed to perfection. Now, it seemed so trivial. But appearances still mattered, especially today. "Thanks, Julia. I'll be right there." She turned back to the window for a brief moment, gathering her thoughts. The final debate before the election. The last chance to convince the world that her plan was the right one, that Earth could be saved. She knew the odds were stacked against her. The planet was on life support, and most people had given up hope. But Evelyn wasn't most people. She believed in the resilience of humanity, in their ability to fight back against impossible odds. She just needed to make them believe it too. In the debate hall, the air was thick with tension. The three remaining candidates stood at their podiums, waiting for the cameras to go live. Evelyn glanced to her left at Marcus Vail, the war hero who had built his campaign on the promise of abandoning Earth and moving to the stars. His plan was radical, but it had gained traction. People were desperate for a solution, and Marcus offered one that seemed simple, even if it meant giving up on their home. On her right stood James Calder, the business mogul whose solution was even more extreme: harness the remaining resources of Earth and use them to build massive spacecraft, but only for the wealthy and the powerful. Evelyn hated everything he stood for, but she knew there was a segment of the population that was willing to follow him if it meant personal survival. The moderator's voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome to the final presidential debate of the global election. Today, the candidates will present their final arguments before the vote that will determine the future of humanity." Evelyn took a deep breath as the cameras turned toward her. "Dr. Frost, you've been clear in your belief that Earth can be saved. But given the current state of the planet, what makes you think humanity should stay here and continue to fight for survival when so many others believe it's a lost cause?" Evelyn's voice was steady, calm. "The planet is sick, yes. But it's not dead. We still have time, and we still have the knowledge and technology to repair the damage we've done. Leaving Earth behind would mean abandoning not only our home but our responsibility. We owe it to the generations that came before us and to the ones that will come after. If we give up now, we're condemning our children and their children to live under the control of others, whether that's corporations, warlords, or, as recent events have shown, potentially alien civilizations. Humanity deserves better than that." Marcus scoffed, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "With all due respect, Dr. Frost, your plan is a fantasy. We've been trying to fix Earth for decades, and look where that's gotten us. The air is toxic, the oceans are empty, and we're down to rationing water in half the world. The truth is, Earth is beyond saving. We need to look to the stars, find a new home where humanity can thrive again. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. And what makes you think we'll do any better on another planet, Marcus? If we don't learn from our mistakes here, we'll just repeat them somewhere else. You're offering a short-term solution that ignores the real issue. Humanity needs to take responsibility for its actions. The debate continued, with Marcus and Calder hammering Evelyn on the impossibility of her vision. But Evelyn held her ground, refusing to back down. She knew she was right, even if the world didn't want to hear it. As the debate ended and the cameras turned off, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. It had gone as well as it could have, but she still felt the weight of doubt pressing down on her. Dr. Frost, you've got a call waiting for you in the back, Julia said, appearing at her side. Who is it? It's them. The aliens. Evelyn's stomach tightened. The alien offer had come out of nowhere, disrupting the entire election. They had appeared on every screen in the world, offering humanity the technology to colonize new planets, but with a chilling condition: they would control humanity's future. Evelyn made her way to the back room, where a small screen displayed the image of the alien emissary. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but its skin shimmered in a way that made it hard to focus on its features. The voice that came from the screen was unsettlingly smooth. Dr. Frost. We wanted to speak with you before the vote. I'm not interested in your offer. The alien paused, as if considering her words. We understand that you are opposed to outside control. But you must realize that your people are on the brink of extinction. We are offering you a lifeline. With our technology, humanity could flourish again, even if not on Earth. At what cost? Evelyn asked, her voice cold. You take control of humanity, and we become nothing more than your servants. Not servants. Partners. We wish to guide you, to ensure your survival. But we cannot allow you to make the same mistakes that led to your current predicament. Our oversight is necessary. I don't believe that. Humanity can stand on its own. The alien's voice became more insistent. You are making a mistake. The vote is tomorrow. If your people choose to reject our offer, there will be no second chance. Earth cannot be saved. The screen went dark, leaving Evelyn alone with her thoughts. She knew the aliens were trying to manipulate her, but their words still lingered. Was she truly asking too much of humanity? Could they really survive without outside help? The next day, the world was holding its breath. People gathered in homes, in public squares, anywhere they could to witness the results of the most important election in history. The stakes had never been higher. This vote would decide the future of the human race. Would they choose to stay and fight for Earth, or would they surrender their fate to an alien civilization? Evelyn sat in her office, watching the live feed as the votes were tallied. The numbers were close, too close. Every second felt like an eternity as the final results trickled in. Finally, the announcement came. The world had voted to reject the alien offer. Humanity had chosen to stay on Earth. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She had won. But the victory felt hollow. The real battle was just beginning. Evelyn sat in her office, the weight of the election results settling in her chest like an anchor. The world had spoken, and they had chosen her vision. Humanity would stay on Earth. But this was not a moment of celebration. It was the beginning of an even harder fight. She knew the road ahead was full of more questions than answers, more obstacles than opportunities. The holographic display on her desk flickered, showing various news outlets covering the fallout. Some celebrated the decision as a victory for human independence, while others lamented the rejection of the alien offer as humanity's final mistake. People on the streets were divided, torn between relief and despair. And in the middle of it all, Evelyn's face was everywhere, hailed as either a hero or a fool. Julia entered the office without knocking, a somber look on her face. "It's happening." Evelyn nodded, not needing to ask what Julia meant. She had known this moment would come as soon as the results were announced. There were always those who would resist, those who would refuse to accept the decision of the majority. The riots had started in New Delhi and quickly spread across the globe, violent uprisings led by groups who had supported Marcus Vail's plan to accept the aliens' help. The protesters demanded that humanity reverse course, that they be given a second chance to escape their dying planet. Evelyn stood, pushing her chair back. "I need to speak to the people." "Are you sure that's wise right now? Things are volatile." "They need to hear from me, Julia. Now, more than ever." Moments later, Evelyn was in front of the global press. Cameras flashed, and reporters shouted over each other, desperate for a comment, but she raised her hand, silencing the room. Her voice was calm but resolute. "We have made our decision. We chose to fight for our home. I know that many of you are afraid. I know that many of you doubt our ability to succeed. But we must remember that we are stronger than we think. We have always risen to meet the greatest challenges, and we will do so again. This is not the end for us, it is a new beginning. And we will face it together, as one people." As she spoke, she could see the faces in the crowd, some hopeful, others hardened with anger or fear. The weight of the world pressed down on her as she tried to maintain her composure. When she finished, there was a smattering of applause, but it was drowned out by the muttering of doubt. She stepped away from the podium, knowing that words alone wouldn't be enough to unite a fractured world. Back in her office, the weight returned. Julia sat across from her, eyes scanning the headlines flooding in on her tablet. "It's a mixed response," she said, not needing to elaborate. The news was clear. While Evelyn's victory represented hope for some, it was seen as a death sentence by others. The protests were growing in size, and the alien offer had created a schism within humanity that might never be healed. "We need something concrete," Evelyn said quietly. "A first step. Something that shows people we're not just clinging to a fantasy." Julia's brow furrowed. "We could fast-track the plan for atmospheric restoration. Announce it tomorrow, maybe even begin the first phase in a few weeks." Evelyn nodded. "That's a start, but it won't be enough. People need to see results. Real results." As they spoke, a message flashed on the screen. The alien emissary was requesting another audience. Evelyn hesitated, her pulse quickening. She had expected them to reach out again, but not so soon. The world had rejected their offer, but clearly, they weren't finished. "Put them through," Evelyn said, bracing herself. The alien appeared, its unsettling form hovering on the screen, its shimmering skin reflecting the light in the room. This time, it did not attempt pleasantries. "You have made your choice," the alien said, its voice sharper than before. "But understand this, the path you have chosen is one of ruin. We offered you survival. You rejected it. Your people will suffer for this decision." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "We chose independence. Humanity will find its own way forward, without being controlled by another species." The alien's eyes narrowed, the shimmering light around it growing more intense. "You are arrogant, Dr. Frost. You think your people are capable of rebuilding a planet that is already dead. You think your technology, your science, will save you. It will not. You have underestimated the severity of your situation, and your refusal to accept our help will lead to your extinction." Evelyn met its gaze, unflinching. We may fail. But at least it will be our failure, not yours. The alien was silent for a moment, as if considering her words. Then, with a final, cold glance, it spoke again. This is the last time we will contact you. When your people are dying, and you realize your mistake, there will be no salvation. Goodbye, Dr. Frost. The screen went dark. Evelyn let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The silence in the room was deafening. Do you think they'll leave us alone? Julia asked, her voice soft. Evelyn shook her head. No. They're too invested in this. I don't know what their long-term plan is, but we need to be ready. They won't just walk away. For the next few weeks, the world was a whirlwind of activity. Evelyn's administration pushed forward with their environmental restoration plan, focusing first on stabilizing the atmosphere and purifying the air. It was slow work, and the initial results were barely noticeable to the average person. Still, Evelyn pressed on, refusing to let the doubt creeping into her mind show on the outside. Meanwhile, tensions continued to rise. The protests against the election's outcome grew more violent, with some factions openly calling for a coup to reverse the decision. Marcus Vale had gone underground, his followers accusing Evelyn of leading humanity to its doom. Reports surfaced of secret meetings between Vale's supporters and those who still believed in the alien offer. It wasn't long before rumors of a full-scale rebellion began to circulate. One night, as Evelyn sat alone in her office, going over the latest data on the restoration project, an urgent message appeared on her screen. Security breach at Research Facility Alpha. Her heart raced as she opened the live feed from the facility. Men in dark uniforms, armed and highly organized, were storming the lab. The restoration scientists inside were being taken hostage. It's Vale's people, Julia said, appearing beside her. They've been planning this for weeks. Evelyn's stomach dropped. The research facility was home to the only working prototype of the atmospheric restoration device. If it was destroyed or stolen, everything they'd worked for would be lost. We need to act, she said, her voice tight. We can't let them take it. But even as she spoke, she knew the situation was slipping out of control. The aliens may have left the stage, but humanity's divisions were tearing them apart. And if she didn't do something soon, Earth would become the battleground for a war she couldn't win. The hours that followed were a blur of frantic decisions. Evelyn's team scrambled to contain the situation, but the rebels had planned their attack too well. By morning, the facility was in ruins, and the atmospheric device was gone. Evelyn stood at the window of her office once again, staring out at the dying world. She had fought so hard to give humanity a chance, but now, with the restoration project sabotaged and civil war brewing, she wondered if it was all for nothing. The future hung in the balance, and this time, there might be no way to tip the scales in her favor.